So hello everybody, my name is Yannick Hofmann. I'm the artistic director of the Intelligent Museum project, which happens to be a research and development project in the sphere of museum research, and it's run by the Deutsches Museum and the ZKM Center for Art and Media. We've kicked this one off 4 years ago already, and the idea of this project is to carefully monitor the recent developments in artificial intelligence. And then we would like to feed it back to the general public. So what we are doing is basically we are inviting international artists to produce artistic works which run on artificial intelligence technologies on the one hand, so that they can basically set up points of critical reflection so that the general public then can get some sort of hands-on demonstrations and some interactive experiences to learn a little bit more about the technology. Now it would be very good if I would see my presentation, but I will just improvise a little bit. Okay, so then what we are also doing is our team is basically not the usual museum crew. So we're having 2 software developers, we're having museum research experts, and this is already a very nice mixture, because with this group we can basically innovate with our very own implementations of artificial intelligence technologies, which are then specifically tailored to the needs of museums. So what we are basically doing is we're hijacking the exhibition space and we're making it some sort of technology sandbox, but not in a techno-naive way. No, we're setting those things up so that people can then critically reflect on the matter. And in the very beginning we were dealing with, I would say, the explicit interactions between the visitors and the museum. So an explicit interaction happens when you're, for instance, using a conversational user interface, or you're using a graphical user interface. This would be an explicit interaction. Then, in turn, we're also dealing with implicit interactions, and this makes it a little bit more interesting. How can you implicitly interact as a museum visitor with a technological infrastructure in a museum? I will tell you what we are basically doing. So a few months ago we developed, and this was developed by the artisan software developer Bernd Lintermann, a LiDAR-based sensor system which is meant to track museum visitors on site. So it deals with non-personalized data insofar that LiDAR sensors are basically working with laser rays. So it's a little bit like this. Laser ray is firing into your direction, and then it's basically using time of flight measurement. And then I can measure basically how far you are away. If I'm using a system which is basically dealing with, let's say, 30 LiDAR sensors for the whole room, yeah? And I'm using 2D LiDAR sensors, which are basically 1D LiDAR sensors, which are basically permanently rotating, I'm then capable of calculating the position of individual objects moving in space or visitors moving in space. Okay, so we are having this sensor system, which is easily scalable and which should become a tool for museum staff to then derive heat maps from this, flow maps from this, and also to monitor the exhibition space in such a way that you can easily tailor the museum experience more adequately to the needs and preferences of the individual visitors. Okay, but this sensor system does not come alone, because we were wondering we are having all of those different sensors at the ZKM and also at the Deutsches Museum. So we were wondering whether we couldn't use those multi-sensors measuring CO2, humidity, temperature, and basically merge it with the data we are deriving from the LiDAR-based system, and then also bringing in data from the internet, which we can crawl and scrape using different APIs and different kinds of analytics, and then bring everything into an IoT system. IoT, you know, Internet of Things. It's not the newest development, one can say, but hey, come on, I'm working at the moment for a museum, and those tend to be a little bit behind schedule, you might know this. So, yeah, with this system, there is not necessarily intelligence involved yet. But we wanted to have an intelligent IoT system, which then museum staff can use to get basically a foundation for their decision-making processes. Not in the sense of we would like to automatize the museum space. This is definitely not what we would like to do, because we are basically working with the idea of augmenting intelligence. Yeah? We do not want the AIs to take over all of your jobs. Nonetheless, probably a few, you know. But no, we would like to enhance the capabilities of museum staff. Okay, so how does the intelligence come into play? The intelligence come into play when you're then applying intelligence operations like developing Prognosemodelle, prediction models, something like that, for instance. So you could, for instance, make a visitor forecast on the basis of how many visitors have been present a week ago or something like this. Okay. Very, very simplistic time series operation, and maybe this is a bit stupid, but you could easily then bring in weather data which you harvested from an weather API, and then you could make some conclusiones whether people tend to go to museums when it's raining or something like that. Okay, you're still not persuaded, it sounds a bit off. There are many, many more ways. Imagine you have visitors moving around your venue, and their trajectories, you can analyze those as well. Yeah, and you can then, for instance, analyze their visitation style. There has been great research going on in the early 80s with the visitation style, where basically this was based on observations and empirical testing in the museum space. But now we can basically use artificial intelligence to do this for us, identify individual visitation styles, and then adapt, for instance, a media output to this particular visitor mood. So if this person has a very, very short duration, concentration span, for instance, maybe we only show them 9-second vines or TikTok videos or whatsoever. And I'm joking, but maybe not necessarily an extensive Marina Abramovic video. So it's not necessarily my task to say what it should do, because it's everything what we are developing is open source. So the idea is basically that you can try it yourself, and that this becomes some sort of hub where you can then basically plug in your very own use case, your very own scenario in your very own museum, or it does not have to be a museum, it can be a cinema as well. So this is basically the idea behind it. And yeah, you will find our developments under intelligent.museum/code. And yeah, I think you will also find a few presentations on the internet where you will then also have some nice and illustrative pictures and hopefully also some videos. And then, yeah, I think you will understand. I think I will leave it with this, because if you don't have any visualization, it does not make so much sense. I have those very neat diagrams, and I could only explain them to you, but you will probably don't get anything if I only describe it. Nonetheless, does anybody of you have some questions? Yes, I will hand over the microphone so that they will also record your voice.
Okay, the goal was to have a fully customized experience, right?
I need to take the mic again. Fully customized. Yes and no. So the idea is always, we do not want to harvest vast amounts of data, like I'm not interested in your biometrics, even though if I would have your biometrics, I could probably get more insights or something like this. But the reason why we were inventing this LiDAR-based system, or Bernd Lintermann did, was basically that we did not want to work with biometric data. We do not want to make the museum space another panopticon, and we are very, very careful with this. Because we all know this, these operations like detecting your emotions, and then Paul Ekman style, you have basically 6 basic emotions and something like this. For us, it was a bit too plain. And also, I think that if you're using, for instance, optical tracking, which is often considered the prerequisite to really get insights, as part of which we can then tailor the museum experience to your needs. Yeah, connection just broke, but I think you got the point. So I think we are trying to tailor it to the needs of visitors, but not by all means. It's always a trade-off. Using a camera in museum space, it's always a symbol. It represents basically surveillance, and people won't feel super confident. But I give you another example, and this I would have also brought as a video. We have, I will be finished very soon. So we are also having this speech-enabled museum label. So this is basically something, it listens to the voice of the museum visitors, and it's capable of identifying your national language, and it then easily adapts to this, showing you meta-information in regard to a specific artwork, for instance, so that the language barrier decreases. So we are trying a few kind of operations to basically tailor the museum experience to the needs of the visitors. Are there some more questions? I think we have one question. Yes, over there. Oh, but I really...
I got it, if you want.
You got it? Perfect. You have it under control.
Thank you, and thank you for your talk. I have deep sympathy for you not being able to present, but I think you did really well. But if I take the one slide that you do have very seriously, Data-informed Museum of the Future, I'm just curious if you have projected out what you've been doing 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. What could that manifest in terms of a museum of the future? What could that really be if you, I understand everything is fairly early days now, but if you pushed it, where would you like it to go?
I'm always super careful with this, because I mean the technological advancements these days, they are skyrocketing in a way. So, but if you ask me, I think the museum experience of the future won't be a virtual experience. It will be a hybrid experience. There will be many overlappings between the digital and the analog sphere, for instance, and this makes it necessary to have strong, good interfaces. And for this, cognitive computing can help out using stuff like computer vision, using the conversational user interfaces with natural language processing and understanding. And then the museum experience of the future, I think it will become, but somebody else once said it, it will become more like a dialogue, more like a conversation. I think this was Zerota or somebody. So yeah, I think so that the museum experience of the future, it will be more responsive to you. And I also think that the amount of co-creation will increase, because what we are seeing these days, and this is not necessarily related to this talk, I mean, with all the capabilities of the generative artificial intelligence, we now have the possibility to actively co-create in the museum domain. People could, for instance, innovate with image worlds, but they could also use, for instance, large language models to make some sort of semantic search requests, so that, for instance, a piece of work in the museum gets contextualized more adequately. So I think that the future goes a little bit into this direction. But it could also be Endstation Metaverse. Let's hope not. Okay. I think I'm over time, right?
No, you're just in time.
I'm just in time. Just in. Okay. Thank you very much.